Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Ready, set, go. Hey everyone, welcome back to Loud Mom's Lair. I'm Tara.
And I'm Kristen. So we had a little change in plans
Just a
since
little.
last week. We know we made such a big stink about our moms being here. Due to, travel plans, changing schedules were, shifted. We're going to do an episode today a little differently. We will still have our moms on. We're working that in the details.
It should be next episode.
Yes.
Should.
Wink, maybe. We'll see. But before we get into everything, we, again, haven't really talked. So how are you doing?
Yeah, doing okay. Kind of getting back into our routine. You know, we were in Hawaii for a week and I'm back to hell. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're just trying to settle back into our routine, trying to, or I guess being full-time parents again. But yeah, honestly, it's just kind of hitting the ground running, and it's a short week this week because of Memorial Day was Monday. So we're already ready for the weekend. But how are you doing?
Kind of the same. I was out of town for a little bit. So trying to get everything back on track. But other than that, I mean, nothing really. Traveling sucks sometimes.
It does.
I had to deal with delays and awfulness.
Our plane, so when we were flying out, so we drove to Dallas, which is about 3-hour drive, so we could get a direct flight to Maui. Okay. We got to Dallas. We had 3 airplane changes. And literally, it was so funny. We looked like cattle going from one gate, because as the plane changed, the gate changed, right? They're like, maintenance is on this plane, so you got to go to the next one. You just see 100 people get out of their seats and run over to the next gate. And then that happened 3 times. And everyone's just like, it was comical by the time we actually got on the plane. But
oh my God, that's so funny. How long of a direct flight was that from Dallas then?
So going there, it was 8 hours. And then coming home, it was 6.5 because, wind is a thing. But it wasn't too bad. Did you have layover?
Okay. No, thank God. I cannot get flights unless I travel to Hawaii or somewhere further. I don't do direct flights because I am a very impatient person, and if I have to wait any longer, it's not a good scene.
No, that is exactly how I am. But well, I'm happy to be back, and I know you are too. So first, we're going to kick this episode off and do our normal cheers, but cheers to being back from our trips and kind of diving back into reality, which is sometimes a hellhole. So cheers.
Cheers.
Well, everyone, this week, so we're going to change pace a little bit. So we talk a lot about kids and everything, which we still will a little bit, but this episode, we're going to dive into a little heavier of a topic. So before we start discussing everything, we just want to really highlight, because this is a public platform, we want to highlight that a little disclaimer that we are not medical professionals in any sense. We do not have that background. We do not have those licenses or certifications. And we are just moms sharing our experiences and what we learned throughout our experiences. And then we also did a little bit of research on specifically the Stanford medical website and just pulled some statistics from that. So please just take everything we say with a grain of salt. If you find yourself in any situation that we discuss, please talk about it with a professional, with a healthcare provider that you go to for any further information or advice or any assessments. So this is not advice specifically for medicine and medical purposes. Okay. Yes. Disclaimer done.
Exactly. It's really us discussing things that we've been through in our life. And I kind of think just what you said, it's good to just talk to at least one person about that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to discuss, I know Tara has previously talked a little bit about her ectopic
pregnancy.
Ectopic. Okay, we'll get that.
See, it's that uncommon.
And we are also going to add on miscarriage. It's something I don't think a lot of people realize that they may even go through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very faint. So we kind of wanted to dive into that.
Yeah, we really wanted to highlight like the fact that it's more common than people may know, and kind of offer a little bit of education, not from a medical background, but just offer like a little bit of education that we learned throughout our process and experience, because we didn't even know what to expect or what even existed out there before we went through it. And I know a lot of women and men do not know some of these things even exist. Specifically, like my experience with the ectopic pregnancy, I had no idea what that was. I've never even heard about that before. And then I learned that it's quite rare, but it does happen, and it could be fatal. And it's like a lot of these could be very extreme circumstances. And so we just want to shed some light on this topic and maybe help remove the stigma about women wanting and men wanting to stay quiet about this topic. So
yeah, and kind of to add on, you're not alone. People go through it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something else that you have to go through, but we're here also.
Yeah, and we want to cover all types of pregnancy loss. So even outside of, the ectopic and miscarriages, like we'll dive into that in a little bit on what exists. And understand this was pulled from a website, and there's millions of websites out there. And
we can link that website too.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so anyway, I kind of wanted to break the ice and, ask Kristen if she's okay with sharing, like, why now? Why do you want to share your story with everyone now? Because I remember like first breaking the ice when I after I went through the ectopic, and like select few people knew, but when I actually went public with it was actually on my TikTok. And I shared a lot of the story on it, which was the first time. And yeah, and it's quite empowering. So I just wanted to know kind of what your experience was with that coming to today.
Yeah, I think kind of what you said before, spread awareness to it. Again, there's a lot of people who don't know really anything about any of it. And I think a lot of it is comfort too. It's nice to be able to share that and know that other people have gone through the same thing. Because I never really in my life would I have ever thought I would have a miscarriage. And then it happened. And if we weren't specifically trying to have a baby, I would have never known. It would have just shown up like, oh, okay, you just started your period.
Right. So you guys were trying for a second baby. How soon did you realize you were pregnant after you started trying?
So that's kind of another crazy funny. So when I got pregnant with
were you drunk and it was another?
No.
I'm just kidding, everyone.
So when we got pregnant with Braxton, it obviously, I said it before, we didn't even know. Yeah. I went into the doctor and there he was. This one, it actually took a lot longer than I thought it was, because the first one happened so quickly. I was like, oh, this should be pretty easy.
Right.
It seems like we're both fertile, like we're good, right?
Right.
No, I think it took a couple months, which still isn't that long.
Right. Everything's relative. This is your experience. It was long for your guys' experience. Yeah.
What I thought would, happen. So yeah, we were trying for a couple months. And then you read up all on it. How long do you have to wait to take a pregnancy test? Blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah, all that stuff. Um, so then you kind of get excited, when you realize you're supposed to have a period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, should I take a test now? Whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it took a few months, but then it happened and took a test and everything came out good. It was more of like it was a faint line, but you could definitely see
Right.
something there. So saying that, it was obviously very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I told Austin it was, a good moment, happy moment. I called my doctor and I scheduled the first prenatal appointment,
Okay.
which I scheduled it a little bit further out just so I could be further along. So that was scheduled, everything. And you know how they always have to tell you, if you feel cramping, bad, bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, give us a call. So it was a few hours later, I started to get cramping, which I knew, it could happen anyway. That
Yeah.
wasn't really the big thing for me. And
Can I
then
pause you for a second?
Mhm.
So, have you read before that cramping could, either be like really bad or it could be like the implantation pain? Have you
Yeah,
read that before?
I have heard that.
I don't know if you got confused. I got confused with that a lot. And I was like, when I was feeling pain,
Mhm.
or the initial pain, like throughout my process, it was, this could be good, and there was
Right.
like a tiny bit of light that I was trying to hold on to, or hope
Yeah.
that I was trying to hold on to in the process. So I didn't know, did that go through your head at all or no?
I want to say no, just
Mm-hmm.
because I think, well, I was already thinking it was gonna be okay just because I knew cramping could happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I wasn't thinking, oh, this could happen to me.
Right.
So
Because it can't be that common, right?
right.
Sarcasm.
Yeah. I mean, you would think, right?
Yeah. But 1 in 4 pregnancies, right? There's some type of loss. So,
Insane. So
yeah.
crazy. And then the bleeding started to happen, and that was a little bit more. It wasn't just a light, because again, they say
Okay.
if it's light, it could be okay. You just have to
Mhm.
watch it. So it got a little bit more heavy. And I was I called my doctor and they had me take another test. Just I don't know why. They're medical people, they know. I don't.
Mhm.
So I took another one and it came up the same, a same pregnancy, or excuse me, a positive pregnancy test. Um, so then they wanted me to go to the urgent care and get my blood taken, right?
Okay.
Well, I'm thinking I just have to go and get my blood taken, right? And they're gonna
Mhm.
tell me yes or no. So I didn't have Austin go with me at all. They admitted me to a room in the urgent care.
Oh my
I
god.
had to get my blood taken. I had to have an IV in me the entire time. So then they scheduled me to see if I could have an ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah. Because
Um,
they wanted to rule that out because those are quite
exactly.
dangerous.
Yes, exactly. Um, so after all that, I was still sitting in my room and they use all these terms that I'm not a very, smart person
You are,
when
but
it
you don't have
comes
a medical
to,
background.
yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
did they like dumb it down for you at all?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Okay.
They would say their
That's
medical
good.
term and then, follow it up
That's
with,
good.
this is what I mean.
Yeah.
um, so the doctor came in and kind of was explaining a lot of different things to me, which one of them I've never heard. He said, it could be some sort of a chemical pregnancy where it it just doesn't really attach.
Mhm.
So then they looked at my blood work and my numbers were going up like how they would when you were
For
pregnant.
normal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then there wasn't really anything else I could do, at that time. So he wanted me to come back in 48 hours to get
Mm-hmm.
another test. Cause obviously if my numbers, went down, then obviously you
Right.
lost whatever was in there. So, I mean, it was kind of crazy.
Right. Because so in the sorry, so in the blood test, they look at the HCG levels, which is the hormone that is produced during pregnancy. And in the first, don't quote me, everyone, but in the first X amount of weeks or days, weeks, months, whatever, non-medical background, it increases exponentially, right, at a specific rate or whatever. And in the earlier pregnancies, it increases so much, like more, and then it kind of levels out right throughout the rest of pregnancy. And yeah, I can relate to you on like the blood tests and everything. Mine was a 72-hour wait versus a 48-hour wait, but yeah, okay, sorry, keep going. So you did, yeah. So, so you had to go back 48 hours later, and you had to do your blood tests, and then
and that one was an actual blood test. I didn't have to be there for 2 hours plus.
Okay, it was just taking blood.
It was just take the blood. You can get out of there, and then I mean, it came back. Obviously, the numbers were a lot lower.
Okay.
And then you kind of just so after I left the urgent care, obviously I'm by myself because I didn't think it was going to be. If I would have known I would have had to stay, I definitely would have had Austin there with me.
And this was the first time, right? The first blood test time.
Yes.
Okay.
And in that moment, and when everybody's coming in, and then the doctor comes in and talks to you, and I mean, granted, they were all so nice. They even gave, like advice and stuff like that. It happened so quickly that I don't think I really even was able to take the time to think about what just happened.
Right.
Right. So
like you couldn't process it in the moment.
Yeah. And
you're flooded with emotions and thoughts and the what ifs and
well, and I'm sure the doctors and the nurse was like, okay, this lady, like she's not crying, she's not like showing anything, like what's going on with her?
I'm sure. And I'm sure like they have seen the plethora of emotions, right? Like the entire spectrum of what could exist. And that kind of like what you just said, the thought of, like they probably think I'm crazy for acting this way is like kind of goes back to the stigma of like the pregnancies, right? Like we want to stay quiet because we think we're weird for having this thing happen to us, or we think we're different because of this experience, right? And it's like it's kind of along the same lines as like they think I'm weird or crazy for having this emotion, and it's like no, you are allowed to feel however you want to feel in that moment, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. It's not funny, but when I was there, they were asking me all these questions like, were you trying? And it was so much different than when I had Braxton or when I went in, when I found out I was pregnant with Braxton, just because it was so early on. And again, I was like, oh my God, these people are probably looking at me like, why did you do this so early?
No.
It wasn't right after it happened. I waited, until you're supposed to wait to take a test. But just in my mind at that time, I was like, oh my God, am I like a fool for even reaching out to the doctor?
No. So girl, I was taking tests like the day after we had sex. I'm like, it had to have happened. There has to be 1% of hormones in me now.
It's so because you do want to though. You get excited and you're like, oh my God. When you're trying, you have like 15 boxes of pregnancy tests just laying around.
I had like a surplus box of I had like ovulation tests, and then I had pregnancy tests, and it was a combo kit, and they were like the little strips versus the expensive plastic ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And oh girl, I went through so many of those. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Matt thought I was crazy. But
right. Thank God I had that extra one when they told me to take that other one, because I think that was my last one. So then finally I get in my car and I'm texting Austin, during this whole thing, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my phone dies also in between it. So
Stop.
I have to ask the nurse, I'm so sorry, but do you have a phone charger
Stop.
I could borrow? Just because I knew if Austin probably was like, what the hell? And then she
Right.
just like stops talking to me.
There's no like, hey babe, my phone's about to die.
Right. It just died. So
While all of the drama is happening after it died.
Right.
Oh God.
So she was able to give me a phone charger. And just when I got in my car, then that's when it like all hit.
Mm-hmm.
I just started, and I know a lot of people have cried when they're driving, but I just don't do that because it's so
you can't
difficult.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just got home and I was still crying and just all the emotions. And obviously your hormones already are.
Mm-hmm.
So
They started.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it was like a couple days later, and obviously I'm still, upset by it. And I'm looking up, when will I go back to normal? When will I stop crying? Just because when will your hormones just go back to normal? So maybe
Never.
it's a little bit easier. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. Never.
Hormones are a bitch.
Yeah.
Men, all right. Women go through it.
Yeah, you guys got the easy life.
Kidding, but not kidding.
Right. So I mean it happened so fast, but again, I never would have thought that it would have happened to me. I've had family members, I have friends who have gone through it, and you don't obviously every story is different.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to sound so wrong of me saying it. But I'm grateful that it happened at the stage it was at.
Yeah.
And I wasn't further along, because I've known people who have had that or have had to give birth to stillborns, and it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So coming out of it, it's definitely a big eye opener. Just to even understand everything.
Right. So you were in your car processing everything, and so could you not tell Austin until you got home because your phone was dead, right?
So he obviously knew why I was going in.
Right.
And what the doctors have said. No, I was able to let him know a little bit before my phone died. And then when I got charged a little, I texted him, and I was they were letting me go. So I was able to then call him when I got in the car. So I didn't have to wait until we got home, but
right.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Did the doctors tell you anything of like what you should do throughout this process, right? Because a miscarriage, like your body has to still rid of whatever it started. And I know earlier, like there's less tissues involved and everything, but I know there's still stuff involved that the body needs to get rid of, right? Like, did the doctors tell you anything on like how to take care of your body and or like what to look out for, or were you early enough to just kind of like you were in a safe spot? And
yeah, I think I was I'm trying to remember. I don't think they gave me a whole bunch of stuff. Because I think I was earlier on than normal. But I just relax,
yeah.
all that stuff.
Now, did you experience like, like intense cramping, or how long did like the bleeding continue for? I'm just trying to kind of shed light on, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but shed light on like what could come of it, right, in the earlier stages. And
no, absolutely. So it started out with just like cramping, so I don't know about anybody else. Again, this is a little bit TMI, but we're in the process right now. When I'm getting
Welcome.
ready, when I'm
To
getting
Loud
ready to
Mom's Lair.
start, when
You
I'm
guys hit the play button, okay?
Exactly. You're here for it. When I'm getting ready to start my period, I can always tell because I get little cramps. That's kind of how it started out. Little cramps.
Little, you lucky.
Just to start out. And then it started, with very light bleeding.
Yeah.
And then yes, it did when I was actually at the urgent care. They gave me some medicine because I was starting to cramp a lot. And then the bleeding got heavier. The bleeding lasted like a normal period then would.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like flushing. And then it was like, all right, well, it's time for your period. So here we go. Right.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what they kept asking me. Like, is it kind of like a period? And then even after, I think I was still having cramps, which obviously could have been because I was still bleeding. A few days after, I was still having pretty bad cramps, which I have bad cramps, but I can't say that I experience ones where I just want to sit down all day
and curl up. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely what it was at that point.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for you. I mean,
oh no. I mean, I'm sorry for the 1 in 4 pregnancies that fail, and I'm just so proud of you for sharing your story and how so you got home and everything and you were able to have the conversation with Austin and whatnot. And did you guys kind of like were you able to like heal from it or anything? And I know it's an ongoing thing, right? That'll never be fully healed because that's your baby, like whether it's formed or not, like it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the experience really.
I don't think it or he understood really until I got home. Because before he's just like, well, go to the doctor, let's see what they say. And then when I got home, I think he was like, okay, he's seen me crying and it was just a very emotional time because he actually started to cry, which then I think he realized, oh wow, this is something that is. And like you said, I mean, it's still your baby no matter what, right? And that's
absolutely
not something you ever want to, and even having a kid before and knowing kind of what we went through and what you got to, experience, and then it's just all gone. It's taken away.
Right. In like a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And it's 100%. Like society, I would like to say, is you are supposed to be normal the moment after you find out, right? And you're supposed to just carry on normal life and go on with your, your work schedule and you don't have a grieving process. And it's on your personal time, right? And so I think that's, I don't know, personal opinion, right? I think that's a huge issue in today's society, especially with how common this is and how emotional, I mean, hormones, yes, absolutely play a thing, but like how emotional this is, not just for the woman, but like for the man too. And, or for the partner, right? Like you could have a surrogate who unfortunately like fails a pregnancy and like every party that is involved in that pregnancy feels the loss, right?
Exactly.
To some extent. So, yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing the story, and I know everyone listening appreciates you sharing that story, and that's a huge step forward in the healing process. And you didn't even have to share it with the public, but I am proud of you. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. I think just like you said too, it's a part of the healing process. I feel so much better being able to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
And just knowing that I'm not the only one who has gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people who have, and there's so many different types of pregnancy loss.
There are. So, yeah, so you experienced, the miscarriage, right?
Mhm.
Before the end of the first trimester, which is one of the main, I don't want to say common, but common types,
Right.
right? And then I experienced the ectopic. So, just kind of a quick refresh. So, in the event that the listeners haven't heard like my experiences, we started trying for a baby before our child lived, like before she was conceived. We were started trying, and we got pregnant. And I was currently active duty at the time, and super excited. We were out, like I said, we were trying. So we had the ovulation test, we had the pregnancy test. We were checking literally the day after sex. Like we were. I don't want to say we. I was psycho about it. And once we got like the two pink lines on the strip and everything, I was like, yup. And I went on base, and I took a test and everything, and they're like, yep, you're pregnant. Like, and we have this thing called profile, so it's like you don't do certain things within the job description, right? And you are now considered pregnant and non-deployable and all of the things. And there's certain people that have to know in your chain of command once you do find out you're pregnant. So my commander was called actually before me that time, and I was like, wait, what? Oh yes, oh yeah. So my doctor, I don't think this is how it's actually supposed to go. I don't think it might be legal. I don't know, because military has their own weird rules. But like my commander was called about my positive pregnancy test before I was called about my positive test. Fortunately, I already took one at home, so like I knew. But like I was like, that is why wouldn't you tell the woman that she's pregnant before the commander finds out?
That told you.
Yes, I'm the one that peed in that cup. And so anyway, my commander was like, congratulations. And then my phone rings. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh.
Yeah, it's fine. So anyway, super excited, right? Because we were trying, and it just all of the flooded emotions come through. And I call Matt immediately, let him know. Like, he already knew because I took the test at home. Right. But I was just like, confirmed, like, we're good and we're in the clear, or what we thought was in the clear. Fast forward, I don't even know how long, like, because my issues started like 8 weeks fully in, 7 weeks, something like that, whatever. Anyway, and by my clock, it was roughly 8 weeks, and I started spotting a little bit and like getting a little crampy, but it was also like we were past the implantation like period. So it was kind of weird. Nurse practitioner friend that I always call, like one of my best friends. I always call her like if I have issues with anything, because why wouldn't I? Right. And I trust her with my life. And I told her what was going on. She's like, okay, like you need to go to the ER. I was like, well, no, like I'm fine. It's fine. She's like, you need to follow up with your doc, and so I went to the ER that night because it started becoming more than spotting. And they took tests and everything, and my HCG levels were lower, but like I was still pregnant, right? And so they gave me the timeline of 72 hours. So go do another blood test in 72 hours and we'll compare the results, right? So I went on base, and because I had to, Air Force rules, I had to go back on base, and they did the blood test on my next duty day. So I went back to work, and I was in my office, and there's like 30 plus airmen that I was in charge of, or in charge of it, that were in the same office, but just like separated by like a line of lockers, right? And I knew that there was a chance of miscarriage or a chance of pregnancy loss or yada, yada. So all of a sudden I got a phone call, and while I'm in the office with all of these people in the office, and it's my doctor. And like, I knew this was the big moment, right? And I already told my supervisor what was going on, and he was in the more private offices near me, and like the master sergeant, who was our flight chief, he was in that section with me as well. And like I got the call, and my doctor said that my HCG levels were still increasing, but they weren't increasing as much, and that I miscarried. And I said, okay, like, are we sure? She's like, yep, your levels are too low, like too low to be a confirmed pregnancy. It's definitely a miscarriage. And, of course, I was immediately hit with a flood of emotions. Also, like when other people's eyes are on you, like you feel the emotions more intensely, at least in my life. Like that's how I feel.
Right.
And it just hits you a lot harder because things are highlighted, right? And so of course, like the tears started and everything. And I was asking my doctor, I said, okay, like, what do I do? Because I already made an OBGYN appointment because the base clinic doesn't have an OB, at least ones that I was seeing. So I got referred off base to a private OBGYN. And I had my 8-week appointment, and I literally had it in like 2 days from that, 2 or 3 days. And I asked my on-base doctor, I said, like, okay, I have this appointment, in a couple days. Should I go just to make sure my body's like doing everything it needs to do? And also because my HCG levels were still rising, like, should I just make sure everything's okay? She said, no, it's a miscarriage. Go ahead and cancel your appointment. Your body will take care of what it needs to take care of. I said, okay, because she's a doctor, right? Like she knows best.
Did you find that comforting or not comforting?
Not comforting at all. Not comforting at all. But I
didn't like that.
No. Who would like that? Who would like hearing, nope, cancel the specialist appointment who does their practice every single day in this sector? Cancel that because your body will take care of what it needs to take care of. I'm like, okay. But I did listen to her because she's the professional, right? I'm not. I don't have a medical background. So I was like, the doctor told me I can cancel it. The doctor told me my body would take care of what it needs to. And so I did. And here we are, literally 3 days after that phone call, when I was supposed to have my OB appointment. I wake up at like 3 a.m. at like blood curdling, screaming pain. And I could not stand up straight. I couldn't even stand up. And I was just bent over holding my stomach. And like, it was the most intense pain that I've ever felt in my entire life. And Matt heard me, obviously. He woke up and I was like, we got to go. And he knew exactly what needed to happen. Like, I don't know how he knew. Maybe I said, we got to go to the hospital. I don't know, but he heard it in my voice, right? He heard that like, this is not okay and something's wrong.
Right.
And so, he drove me to the hospital. We could not get to the hospital faster. I will never forget that car drive. And I just I wish we could have teleported to the hospital. And then we had to wait in the waiting room. They put me in a wheelchair and it was still a wait, unfortunately. And they took us back to the room and they immediately did like another, I forget if it's a urine test or blood test. I forget which one. It was probably blood test if I had to guess. Because they had to do HCG levels. And they came back in the room. They're like, you're still pregnant. And I was like, huh? But like in that moment, Matt and I looked at each other and we were excited, right?
Yeah.
We thought we miscarried. We expected to see really low numbers or none at all. I don't know really how that works scientifically, whatever, anatomically, but biologically, whatever. Anyway, not medical background. And so we expected it to be, I don't know, appendicitis or something. I don't really know. And they're like, no, you're still pregnant. Like, we need to do an ultrasound immediately. And so they did a transvaginal ultrasound because we were still too early on. Right. And they were like, they saw like debris when they were doing it. And I was like, what do you mean debris?
Right. And
they were looking at everything and they're like, we can't find the pregnancy. And they're like, your tube is ruptured. And I was like, what? Wait, I thought you just said we were pregnant. Like, what are you talking about? Because I'm not educated on this, right? And so they educated us on that because my tube ruptured, it had to have been an ectopic pregnancy. But they also enlightened us to the fact that I was internally bleeding like heavily. And they were like, there's a pool of blood inside of your abdomen or your pelvic region. Like, we need to go and explore basically and figure out if your tube, your fallopian tube, for everyone listening, if your fallopian tube is recoverable. And I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, right.
What do you mean you can't save my tube? I was like, don't I need that?
Yeah.
And so anyway, they sent so many different nurses, and the on-call doctor was in. I wanted my OB so bad, but like she wasn't there because it's not her fault. Obviously, she just wasn't on call that time.
Mm-hmm.
And but the doc that we had, she was freaking wonderful, and she like really slowed down the medical terminology, and she was just like talking us through everything, but in an expedited pace, right? Because she knew it was a timeline, and she's like.
Yeah.
She explained the severity of everything. She explained that we need to stop this bleeding. She explained that she doesn't know if she can recover the tube or not, but she's going to explore that option. But that she needed to prep me for surgery immediately.
Right.
And I think I said this on this podcast before, but we didn't even tell our family that we were pregnant yet.
Right.
So Matt, unfortunately, after they wheeled me back, Matt had to call our families and tell them that we were pregnant and now we're not pregnant and now I'm heading to emergency surgery.
Oh my God.
And like, bless his heart, because I don't know how he did that, because if I had to make that phone call, I'd be like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
I can't talk right now, but this is what's going on. She's going back to surgery.
Right. I'll call you later. But
oh my God.
But yeah, and of course, like, there was panic. There was panic in a sense of, I don't know what's going on. I do, but I don't. And I'm scared of what's going to happen. And then we just went through, like, we found out we were pregnant and then not pregnant in the matter of like 45 minutes. And I know, like, Matt's trying to process it. I'm trying to process it. He's doing way better than I was at it. And because, hormones. And I think like fear took over a lot. Right. Anyway, long story short, we found out that they could not save the tube, and they told me that after the surgery, obviously. I believe they told Matt that before I got out of surgery, or before I got into the recovery, and then I'm not quoting him, and he's gonna correct me later probably, but like I'm pretty sure he told the doc that like they need to talk her through that, and me. But knowing that I'm not going to like obviously respond to that well. But I did learn, so anyone who does experience an ectopic pregnancy, so what an ectopic pregnancy is, let's just kind of hit on that real quick. It happens everywhere in between, or anywhere in between, from the website that we pulled from, 1.3 to 2.4% of pregnancy. So it's quite a small percentage. Right. I know that's a relative term, the small term, but it's basically where the fetus or the embryo like implants outside of the uterus. And so in my case, it was a tubal pregnancy, which means mine implanted in the fallopian tube. It grew too large to where my tube could not support it anymore, which caused the tube to rupture or tear. And tear to the point where, in my case, was not recoverable. There was too much debris, too much tissue around, and they had to remove the entire tube. Fortunately, in my case, they did not have to remove my my ovary that was on the same side or any other area in my pelvic region, if you will. But my biggest fear, because we were trying for pregnancy, is, can we get pregnant, right? Like, is that even an option? And I know that's not an option for everyone, and I know there's alternate routes and everything, but it would still be an experience that we would have to grieve, right? And I could not thank the doctor enough, because in the recovery room, she shined some light on our situation, and she's like, you can absolutely get pregnant after losing a tube. And she's like, the fallopian tube, I'll never forget this. She's like, the fallopian tube is like the claw machine game. She's like, it can grab from any ovary it wants. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, the left fallopian tube, which is all I have, can grab from either the left or the right sided ovaries. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And
my God.
she's like, yeah. So like, for example, your left ovary like ovulates 1 month, and then your right ovary ovulates the next month, and they alternate. And she's like, that fallopian tube will just machine its way over to the other one.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. So I mean, that was nice, right? And
Yeah.
that was like, okay, a little comic relief or comedic relief in the shit situation we were in. But and then the recovery process from that was obviously grieving the loss, but and you know, not the minimized chances of getting pregnant, but in my head it was a minimized chance, even though it wasn't scientifically. And or from what the doctor said, I should say. And but the recovery, like the scarring sucks. It was like 3 scars that were total, and like the lowest scar, which is in like the pubic region, is it's a very thick scar, and it's small, but it's like it's deep and it's thick tissue, and it's just a thick scar, and that's probably the one that still bothers me to this day. And that might be a hack job, I don't know. but yeah, anyway, all that to say is ectopic pregnancies happen. I learned a lot in my experience. I learned what an ectopic pregnancy is, and it's just, it could be bad because you do end up internally bleeding. And if it's not caught, it could be potentially fatal because of the blood loss.
That's freaking scary. So, like, if you would have still went to that appointment, they probably could have caught that.
If I went to that appointment, I would assume they would have done another blood test, right? Yeah. I would assume they would have done a transvaginal ultrasound, and they probably would not have seen the pregnancy in the uterus. And I would assume they probably would have deemed that ectopic, because it's not in the uterus, right? And that probably would have raised some red flags elsewhere. What they do with ectopic pregnancies pre-rupture, I believe it's like more of the abortion conversation, and then like a D&C, is that the right terminology? But I can't speak on that specifically, just because I did not go that route. But I think that is the route it would go. Yeah. So, but I think we potentially, I don't know, because the timeline's still like lined up on the day that like the appointment was supposed to be had. Potentially we could have saved the tube, potentially not. What I am upset about is the fact that this doctor was so confident in her diagnosis of a miscarriage and gave me clear and concise direction to not worry about anything and know that my body would take care of it naturally, which it did not, which now I have seen the repercussions from. So I don't think there's any lessons learned for like, unfortunately for anyone out of this, except maybe that doctor. So
don't go to her.
Yeah, it's fine. But I mean, maybe the lesson learned out of that is like advocate for yourself. If you're not comfortable with a diagnosis, get a second opinion. Like military is kind of weird because you start paying out of pocket in the event you don't go to the clinic doctors. So I guess it depends if you have the funds for that.
Right.
Yeah, but if you are not comfortable with a diagnosis, I just highly recommend a second opinion, and it could be life-saving.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of wanted to share some different types of pregnancy loss. I know we kind of covered specifically like 2 of them, the ectopic pregnancy, and we went over like the percentage of that, but the miscarriage, it happens in 15% of known pregnancies, which is, were you shocked to see that percentage?
Yeah, I mean, again, and then look at it, you don't even know half the time if you've ever had one. There will be people out there that you have no idea. It's insane.
Yeah, so then we have specifically the embryonic pregnancy. So that's when the egg is fertilized, but it doesn't develop into an embryo. So it's pre-embryo stage. And then there's a molar pregnancy, which is the placenta and the fetal tissues don't develop normally. So it's still considered a pregnancy loss. And then, as Kristen mentioned, there's the stillbirth, which is the more advanced the later staged
Mm-hmm.
loss. And this site categorizes it as the fetus dies after a 20-week mark within the pregnancy. And then I know Kristen mentioned also like the chemical pregnancy. So it's not a false pregnancy. It's not a false positive test, but instead it's an early miscarriage technically. And it's a loss that occurs after you get that positive urine test. So, but it's before an ultrasound. So it's kind of a weird early window. Yeah.
Right.
But a lot of that is caused because there's some chromosomal abnormality. And a lot of women don't even know that they're pregnant yet, unless like, you're trying and you're tracking everything and you got a planner that has a calendar on it. Yeah. But.
And that's so crazy to even think that there's that many different types of pregnancies.
Yeah, and this is like surface level, right? Yeah. So this is like surface level. These are like the big categories.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, miscarriage, also known as like spontaneous abortion, like this, I mean, there's so many different types of miscarriages. And as I was like reading, and I went to multiple different sites, and there were so many per site, and they varied depending on what site you were looking at. And I was like, okay, we can't do we don't have time to go through all of these. But like, just know, I mean, if you hear that you have a specific type of a miscarriage or a read or whatnot, like, just know that like you are not alone. And there are so many women out there going through a similar experience, if not the same. So if you need help, like reach out, like talk to someone about it.
Absolutely. So some things that can make a pregnancy loss more likely. We kind of just want to go over a few things, educate everybody again. We're getting this off of medical.
Not from a medical background, us.
Yes. So take it as you will. But
talk to a medical professional, please.
Yes, before. Being an older mother, I know I've heard that a lot. Having a loss in the past.
And these are like higher risk of loss, right?
Right, yes. Yeah. Obviously, smoking, drinking, drugs. This one is kind of crazy, is drinking caffeine. I feel like I have known so many people who have like been pregnant and just drink caffeine all the time.
Which is wild. I drink caffeine during pregnancy, and I've had a caffeine problem since I was like 16. So I think it's like so situation dependent, and everyone is different. And this is not an all-inclusive list, right?
Exactly. I just thought that was so crazy because I hear so many people, and especially if you've had like, oh, this is my fourth one, whatever. I drink, a pot of coffee a day, whatever.
And it kind of ties into, like some of the people that you see live the longest are the most unhealthy people, right? Like they're heavy alcoholics or drug users or overweight or whatever it might be, smokers for 40 years. Like it's just wild how things work, right? But yeah, so some of the symptoms that a woman who is pregnant can look out for is just any type of bleeding or cramping, any common symptom of pregnancy, because Google exists. And I know if you're like me, you are probably excessively looking at Google and or any mom app or website and look it up like, what should I be concerned about? Or is this little feeling scary, right?
Yeah.
In later pregnancy. So a woman with a stillborn may no longer feel like the fetal movement. So in the event you have gone through a pregnancy to get to the later stages, the doctors will start talking to you about like paying attention to the kick count and like the movements. If the movements start to slow down or stop, or you notice like, oh, my baby hasn't kicked in a while or hasn't moved in a while, that is something that should be a red flag. I'm not saying it should be concerning yet, but it is something that you should talk to your doctor about or your provider about.
Yeah, because I mean, they can get you in early. I know when I was pregnant with Braxton, there was so many times I was like, okay, I didn't feel him kick today. And it kind of like raises, oh my gosh, okay, is that concerning? Is that something I need to call?
Yeah, and I don't know how you felt, but like I felt at times where I was like, I don't want to be that girl that is calling about the dumbest thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I highly recommend just do it. If there is no better time to call your provider or go to the ER than pregnancy, like for a little thing.
Yeah. And I was blessed by my sister-in-law. Thank you. She had one of those fetal monitors, like home ones. So, I was in there like, all right, let's see if I can hear this.
I'm pretty sure you were the one who told me like what to get. You had one and I ordered one off of Target or Amazon or whatnot. I was obsessive about it though.
They are cool though.
They are really cool. I think I cried like every time I heard the heartbeat. Yeah. Yeah. But then like panic ensues when you don't hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you realize you're not a medical professional and you probably just don't know what you're doing.
You got like a $60.
Mine was $40.
Interaction.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. But
so how they're really diagnosed is you talked about the HCG, so blood test, and then obviously ultrasounds is normally throughout your pregnancy too, which that test uses sound waves and a computer to make images of blood vessels, tissues, and organs.
Yeah, and they watch like the blood flow like on the ultrasound. And then you guys heard me talk about the transvaginal. So it's really when a probe goes up your hoo-ha. And it's just when you're not far along yet or you're very early in pregnancy and they can't see it above the stomach with a normal ultrasound.
Right.
Yeah. And then, I mean, how losses are treated really varies from person to person. It totally is situational dependent. So all we really want to say is talk to your care provider. They will put together a plan. Unfortunately, mine did not, but they should, right? And if they're not, ask them about it. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to push them for answers. Like, you are saving yourself and potentially your soon-to-be child. If you are not comfortable with the answers, then get that second opinion. And I think that just depends on you and your situation and your environment. Yeah. Okay, so I know this was a more serious podcast. It was a very heavy topic, and it was a topic that a lot of people don't want to share about, and that's okay. But remember, lean on whoever's closest to you. Lean on someone. Just remember you're not alone. But to kind of bring this episode up a little bit, we wanted to kind of dive into what toddler tantrums we've had and or fun parenting moments that we've had. So Kristen, do you want to kick this off or do you want me to go ahead and kick this off?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
So mine's going to be a cute one. So I was gone for a couple days. And I got to FaceTime with Braxton, and obviously it's not the same. He's a very big mama's boy. So when I had a very late flight coming back home, and obviously Austin had to bring him because he can't stay home by himself.
What?
I mean,
is that not allowed?
Kenny won't do too much if he needs something. So, so he set up like a little tent in the living room because, they were going to be leaving. So he didn't have to get him in and out of bed. So we got back home. They
sleep in the tent?
Yeah, they napped, let's say. I mean, Braxton slept the whole time, but so he was sleeping when they picked me up, and Austin got him out of the car, and I ran inside because I knew Penny, if she would be nuts. So I was like, okay, I can't hold him and deal with her at the same time. So he brought him in, and I walk out, and he is kind of awake, and because he wanted to lay back in the tent. And I'm talking, and he still isn't like comprehending. Oh,
yeah,
that's her.
Mom's home.
Yeah. Well, then finally he like turns around, and oh my God, he goes, Mom!
Oh, Stop it.
And then he comes up and he goes, I missed you so much. All right. Talk about all your problems. Just go away right there.
Did your heart just freaking melt?
I swear. I just had to hug him and pick him up. And I'm like, I've been waiting for this. I love these squeezes. I love that. I love you so much. And I said, all right, let's go to bed.
And they just freaking like, they bear hug you right now.
God,
and it is the
and Braxton's like, cutest thing is he like taps you.
Liv does that too. And she goes like this on the back.
Your little fingers. You're just like, oh my God, how cute are you?
They're there, Mom. They're there.
Yes. So that was a great moment that just, again, everything just goes away when they do that stuff.
Yep, your ovaries explode.
Yeah.
I freaking love that. And I know he's obviously so excited to have you back home.
Yes. He tells me every day, I missed you so much. I know, bud. I missed you too.
Oh my God. Well, I guess Liv was happy to see us. But I wasn't gonna share a story like that. Okay, I'm gonna go opposite route. Yes, Liv was happy to see us. She gave us cuddles, and it was very exciting. But this girl, I swear to God, so she wanted this thing. It was right before we left for Hawaii. It was in between last podcast and this one, or in the trip. She wanted me to do her hair in the morning, and I normally do like pigtails or little buns or a ponytail, like something to keep it off her face, right? Because they're snotty and gross and sweaty. Because they're toddlers, right? And she'll probably have a receding hairline with how tight I put her ponytails, but it's fine. I will approach that topic when it's time later in life and apologize accordingly.
Yes.
So I was doing her hair, and she's like, I want Elsa hair. And I was like, okay, like, cool. I had no idea what Elsa hair was. Like, I know what the movie looks like. I get it. There's a lot of extensions, and it's a cartoon, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, does she want, like, long hair right now?
Yeah, I mean, she has long hair, but, like, she has very thin hair and very fine hair.
Right.
And she has toddler hair, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, I'll do Elsa hair. I did a ponytail. She instantly felt it. She's like, no, Elsa hair. And she like holds her hand into a diamond shape. And I was like, I don't know what that means. So I was like, cool, that means pigtails. So I do pigtails. Yeah. She's like, no. And she feels her head. And she's like, Elsa hair. And I was like, what the fuck is Elsa hair? So I Google.
Tell me what that means.
I Google, and I'm like, oh, she wants like twists. There's like, to have twists, and then it's like a big ponytail.
Okay.
I was like, I got this. Like, I know how to twist. I used to twist all the time. My sister used to twist my hair growing up. I got this. So I twist like, the two halves, and then I twist the ponytail, and she feels it. She's like, no, Elsa hair. And her volume continues to increase. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die today. So, you guys, I shit you not, 20 hairstyles later, my fingers are raw because these little rubber hair bands are ripping my circulation off. Matt's got to go to work, and he's like trying to take her to school. And I'm like, do I need to take her? Because like I will, but like I got to throw a bra on first, And I'm like, what the hell is this out there? And she turns around. She's like teacher does it. I was like, well, the teacher didn't tell me how she does her hair. So I find out the diamond shape holding of hands means a braid. And if I would have known that 19 hairstyles ago, I could have saved us 30 minutes. And so I did a ponytail braid, I did like the top half section, and then I braided that piece, and then I integrated it into a bottom ponytail braid. And she was like, she looked in the mirror, and she was like, I'm beautiful. I'm Elsa. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? All it took was a fucking braid. And
how funny that she could touch her hair and no,
she
no,
knew.
bitch, that's not a braid.
She knew. And so mom got here like 2 days after that.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, Elsa hair means braid. And so it was probably like the first school day, right? Which was 2 days after mom was at our house. The first school day, she texts me. She's like, damn you for giving her this Elsa hair. Because she had to braid her hair like every freaking day.
Oh God.
Yeah, but so that's my story is, if they tell you to do what the teacher said, make sure to ask the teacher how they do their hair. Lesson learned.
You're going to be graded on hairstyles pretty soon.
I was ridiculed and I was bullied, so.
By a 2-year-old.
Yeah. But.
All right. Well, everyone, just again, a reminder, make sure if you have ever been feeling a certain way, you don't feel comfortable with what is going on, reach out to your healthcare provider if you have questions or anything, again, that's going on with your pregnancy journey. Thank you all again so much for joining us on today's episode. We know it was a deep one. Again, if you're going through this, you've been through it, just remember you are not alone. We all process it in a different way. And make sure, reach out. Any stories you want to share, or let us know again what you would like us to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we always say, you can find us on Instagram at Loud Moms Lair Podcast. We'll let you know when a new episode's about to drop, aka every Monday morning, unless we skip a week because, vacation. And then you can listen on Spotify or YouTube. Just search our channel, which is Loud Moms Lair. And give us any feedback like Kristen said.
Yeah. Well, thanks all again so much, and we will see you next week.
All right. Bye.